Welcome, Adrian. I'm so happy to have you with us today. This is Dr. Pete and T. T is absent today, and Dr. Pete is running solo. And we are with Adrian Cavada. I said that right, Cavada?
Yeah.
Okay. And he runs a program, a company called Kokora. And first, Adrian, why don't you start by telling us your story? How did you get here? What was your journey?
Well, just in general, it's been just been about life. Like I kind of give you like the very start of it. So when I was 3 years old, I was actually kidnapped and strangled. And from that moment of trauma, like it really shaped the reality afterwards. That was like the first moment in my life where I questioned my own existence. Like, why am I here? What is my purpose, right? As a 3 year old. So I had this underlying trauma and I still was trying to figure out how to process it. And let alone like I probably didn't process it the best way I did throughout my journey until I got more into my adult years. But eventually it really started off with in high school when I really got into physical fitness. At least that was my stepping stone into my own personal development. It was the first time in my life where I felt really, for one, I was aware of how like shitty I felt about myself, and also felt really good about myself too. There was a lot of just battling different types of emotions and whatnot, as well as self-image issues, as well as just physical health issues. So in high school, that's when I first took that initial step, and eventually it just opened the door to a lot of different possibilities. Fast forward, I went to college, did my thing. First I started off with the intention to become an engineer, so I went through the whole whole shebang of terms of understanding physics, in terms of studying engineering principles, lean principles, design principles, and all that. But I was still at this stage in my life where I wasn't really I didn't feel aligned with what I was doing. It feels like I was just really training myself to do a job opposed to live out a passion of mine. And the passion was, really about helping people. And I thought I was going to do that through engineering. And I had sat down with actually my coach from high school, and he just had an honest conversation with me, as an adult this time. Like, what is it that you want to do? What is it that you're passionate about? And he drew this diagram or this drawing on this board, on this whiteboard that he had at his gym that he had at that time. A lot of people are typically chasing that dollar, typically looking to get something outside of themselves, opposed to really living out their passion and having the dollar signs or whatever result that you want go after you. So when he had said that, I don't know, it just really clicked, and I had researched a exercise science program at ASU. I had switched programs and whatnot, and I don't know, I really felt resonated with it. Like I really felt aligned with the program itself, and I felt way more like I can see myself doing this in some shape or form. So I made the switch to exercise science, as well as getting into CrossFit more. I got a CrossFit level 1 certification, and eventually I went to Octane CrossFit, where actually I met Pete throughout my journey as a coach. And yeah, it grew from there. Eventually, like I was very aware, especially with that underlying trauma that I had, aware of my existence, aware of everyone else is experiencing some level of pain, right? And so the people that I had the privilege of encountering throughout my coaching journey, especially when I was mainly focused in physical fitness, I noticed there was a lot of issues in terms of managing their emotions, in terms of really like harnessing their own spirit within them. And eventually, I had got into the social work space as well, and I was working with underprivileged youth in my old community that I actually grew up in. And again, I was just very aware, of course, like these kids are dealing with stuff, but I was more focused on the care providers. Like I was observing them and realized like they're very unhealthy and they're doing a very selfless job in terms of helping these people and in terms of helping these kids better their lives. And one day it just kind of struck to me like people that are providing support, these leaders that are providing support for other people need support too. They need something to help, better their physical health. They also need something to better their mental health and also better their spiritual health. They need something in order for them to continue on doing what they love, which is helping people. And this idea of Kokoro just kind of got birthed before I even had the name for it. And the whole idea behind it was like, I want to feel connected. I wanted to connect myself at a deeper level, whatever that really looked like at that time. And pretty much I Google searched like connection between mind, body, and spirit, and up came this word kokoro. And it's a Japanese word for heart, but it's not the physical heart. It's more of a state of being connected, the mind, the body, and the heart, or the spirit. And with the state of being, you're able to really just maximize your human experience. And me personally, and me professionally, I'm really just focused on the experience in terms of how we live our lives, this whole lifestyle that we live. And it kind of connects to this whole lifestyle change that both myself and Dr. Peter are on, with helping people make these changes for one in a simple way, as well as in a natural way, as well as from a genuine place, and not just running away from issues. You get what I'm saying? It's more like I'm facing issues head on with bravery, with an open heart, with an open mind, just to learn and develop these skills. And a lot of what I've learned, I've applied it to my own life in some shape or form. I've been working on my physical health, mental health, and spiritual health, along with the people that I serve. And, long story short, here I am today. I'm really focusing on this holistic approach towards health. And me specifically, what I focus on is more leadership performance and how people take care of themselves as a leader, both professionally and personally. And that's where I'm at.
Both Adrian and I are in the business of helping people with lifestyle. And I think we both listening, that's a profound story that you talked about, the kidnap and the strangling. I did not go through anything like that, but I was bullied extensively and beat up repeatedly. My whole life experience through high school was one of utter misery. So I think that we perhaps overlap in having traumatic experiences like that. That I would agree with you that experience has driven a lot of my decisions in life, and it's brought me here, brought me to Octane CrossFit, where I met you. And I know that we were, I think we operate in parallel.
Mm-hmm.
What I mean by entry point is, for Tanner and I, we first encounter people where we are talking about metabolism, what they're eating, right? But all the things that you mentioned are part of it. So we use what we call the Makes Me Healthy system to do this. It's probably, if you and I were to sit down and outline our respective ways that we work with the people, we would find a lot of overlap, because a successful lifestyle change is not going to happen if you don't deal with the mind and the body and the heart, as you put it, to use your terms for it. We call it the loving sphere of lifestyle change, where we think about each component of a human being a sphere, and on the surface of the sphere, wherever you rotate this, wherever you were to take a finger and touch the surface of the sphere, you're looking at a different compilation of ways that a person is behaving. And the idea is, if you think about like the sign of the Olympics, right? So if you were to take all of these, a sphere for the mind, a sphere for the body, a sphere for what they're eating, and you have all of those connected, you can't change one thing without changing all of them. All of them are going to change. So if you have poor lifestyle habits, and so this is what I mean by entry point. From our standpoint, we talk about what people are eating, because you can't, if your metabolism is in the toilet, that means that sphere is rotated a certain way, and it's going to influence everything else in your life, including relationships, your physical activity, and I imagine, relative to what you do, leadership qualities. Because if all these other things are failing, then probably you're not having a great time of it in whatever leadership. So what would you say is the entry point for you? Like, where is the start of your conversation with the people that you work with?
It always starts with the why. Like, why are you either seeking help? Why are you seeking to change? Why are you living? What are you doing and why are you doing it? And I think the more clear we get on the why, the stronger for when we get grounded into ourselves as we make these changes. At least from my personal experience, what I've experienced, and also with the clients that I've served so far. Even if it's a good change, you're working on your health, working on your mental or spiritual health, there's always this sensation of resistance, even if it's good for you, just because your subconscious mind doesn't want to change, right? There's these underlying barriers within us because of our upbringing, because of the things that we believe is true. So when we have that why, we get ourselves out of these narratives that have been repeated in our head so many times, right? So when we get to the moments in our journey when things are becoming challenging or overwhelming, or pretty much you want to quit, we can remind ourselves of the why, and it keeps us going, keeps us grounded, keeps us fulfilled in some way.
Well, the why is the process, though, isn't it? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I think because when I sit down with a potential client and I start to talk to them, right, it's not so much that I'm talking to them as that I'm asking them questions, because I want to get to the why too. Like if someone comes to me and they say, I want to lose weight, that's usually a foreign language for something that's a lot deeper, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's underneath you. What is it that makes you unhappy with your body, or how you're existing in the world? How can we get to that? And I find, in my experience, that getting to the why is actually pretty hard. Like that
Mm-hmm.
takes some sessions. Like, so how do you, in how you're interacting with these people, what does this look like for you?
A lot of patience.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of patience. In the beginning, I understand that, for one, everyone is very either emotionally in tune or very aware of themselves. So it's a very difficult question to even ask, like, why are you you? And a lot of people don't really spend time on that. However, I think if you break it up into just small segments, something that I like to do is 7 layers deep, and at least in the beginning. So, for example, a client came up to me maybe a couple years ago, and she had this intention to become a part of the military, right? And this is completely changed. This is a completely different route that she ever thought for herself. She wanted to go to college. She wanted to do these different things, but she was met with a kid. She got pregnant young, and she did a different route. But as her kid got older, now she had a bit more freedom and a bit more, I guess, understanding of what she wanted to do. And the funny thing is, she's actually a friend from, I think, kindergarten. So she had reached out to me just, through my natural network and all that, just to see how I can help her. And a couple of times, because the funny thing is too that it was probably like 3 years in the making until she officially became a client. I used to go to the Phoenix College with her to give her free sessions, kind of give her a taste of what she wanted to do. Because at first it was kind of like what you said, she wanted to lose weight. But what does that really mean? And eventually, like fast forward, she had stopped doing the free sessions with me. And she was at this moment in her life where she really felt this need to change, but I don't think she really knew why. And I sat her down, talked to her, and she wanted to become, an army officer, right? She wanted to be actually in combat, and specifically for treating people. She thinks she's a medic officer, I believe. So she wanted to do that and really help people in the heat of whatever commotion's happening out in the field. I was like, all right, cool, we can do that. And pretty much the way at least I construct my experience for my clients, because that's what I really do for all my clients. I give them an experience, and it helps them, for one, gain the skills, like actual life skills that they can learn and apply in real life. They get a support system, they get education, and they get everything else in terms of mind, body, and spirit in a very natural and comprehensive way. So throughout the journey with her, so pretty much is just about challenging why are you doing what you're doing, and reminding yourself of her why. And eventually I found out what the true why was. We had went on a retreat out in, I believe, Sedona, some water hole with some friends. And I had asked her, like, so why are you doing this? Like, why are you about to join the military? Why have you been working on going from a size or a 40-inch size waist to a 30-inch waist, and losing all this weight and bettering your physical health, your mental health, and all that? And it boiled down to, she had a scare for her health. a cancer scare,
Uh,
where she had pretty much limited time, at least in her perspective, to the amount of life that she has. So she wanted to really show her son what she's able to do and inspire him for his own future, because she's not sure how long she has. And she's a caretaker for her dad, caretaker for her son, and pretty much a caretaker for her entire family. She is
she
that
still
rock.
has cancer.
I'm not sure if she has cancer,
Oh,
but I think it's like benign or something like that. But it was a big enough scare for her to really
yeah.
like, what am I doing with my life? And there is still this chance where the cancer could become non-benign, right, and become a problem. So she decided, I want to actually live my life and do it how I want to do it. And she met a lot of resistance from her family, from her friends, pretty much from the world, that this decision she's making to join the military isn't the right route. But when she met me, like this is really what you want to do, we'll make sure it happens. It's just, I want to make sure you know why you're doing it. Because a lot of times people want to do this big change and all that, and they make this change and they're still not satisfied. They're just
Yeah.
back at square one because they never actually left it. They were just really trying to, yeah, they were really just trying to like fill a void, or they were trying to find an escape of some sort. However, like this wasn't the case for her. She did it. She got through every stage. We met a lot of resistance, even from the military, because she still wasn't the right size or the right weight, the right waist size, all these different things. And for one, as a coach, it's kind of hard when like, oh man, like, did I fail? Did we fail? Like, we trying to take up on this blame, but it's like, well, it's just resistance. And as you know, Pete, from your own physical health journey, like when you get met with resistance, you got to try again. Put the reps in, and you get stronger to hold that resistance, to push through that resistance. And that's exactly what we did. Eventually, she got into the military, passed all of her physical fitness exams, and she was a person that did not have any physical activity in her life, at least to that degree, in terms of joining the military and what everything they require of their personnel to do. So now she's finishing up training. I believe she already graduated, actually. So I think she's doing some more training to kind of solidify those skills. And yeah, she's living a good life. I can see on her social media, she's posting. We FaceTime every now and then just to check in. And because she knew her why. She knew exactly why she was doing what she was doing.
Did you help her with the physical fitness? Like, were you guys doing a program in the CrossFit gym, or working in your home gym, or what? How did you do that?
So with her specifically, we did an online program at first, and eventually went into a bit of a hybrid program. So I would see her once a week in person, just to go over form, to go over any technique stuff, and kind of instill some mindset strategies as well. Because I did my research in terms of understanding what the military is calling for her to do in terms of mindset, in terms of physicality. So a lot of the process was for me to get in the mindset of what a soldier needs to do, as well as keeping it human as well. So with her, we met once a week on a video call such as this, and just talked about life, talked about how her week went, how pretty much it went. So typically what I do in my sessions is what went well. So I asked 3 different questions: what went well, what did not go well, what can we do to improve moving forward, what actionable steps can we do to improve moving forward. And pretty much is for one to keep yourself self-accountable, keeps the gears flowing in terms of problem solving, and pretty much eliminating the sensation of stagnation. Because a lot of times, at least in my personal experience, when I'm making a change, there's moments where I just feel stagnant, like I'm not moving. But it's because I'm not asking myself these questions to self-reflect and to keep myself accountable to the change that I'm making. So when I found out that concept, I started switching it over to my clients as well, and it helped her. Helped her get out of her head, get out of these emotional turmoils or emotional stagnations, right? To get her back into a problem-solving mode, get her back into focus, pretty much.
Do you find what I'm wondering about? I'm thinking about again, we overlap, and I'm thinking about on our end of things when we first start working with people, that there can be a commonality in the barriers.
Mm-hmm.
When you first start working with them, is there a commonality? Is there with the people that you've worked with? Is there something that you run into commonly? You know, it doesn't matter who it is, but this issue is going to come up, and it'll probably come up early. Is there anything that you find like that in the people that you work with? Perhaps this woman who is now, sounds like, successful in this transformation.
Yeah, definitely. It always boils down to clarity. You know, what is it that they're doing? What is it that they want to do and why they're doing it? And the more clear that the person can be in the beginning, for one, like I said in the beginning, right? Get grounded, you know exactly, at least to a degree, of what you're creating. So it's clarity in terms of a lack of clarity, actually, more like it, in terms of the clients that I meet, as well as not having a system in place that can be pretty much applied to their daily life and not just be like a cookie cutter way of doing things, but having a system in place that allows them to really like find that rhythm, that natural rhythm in their own life to get the job done, right? At least in me personally and professionally. And I wouldn't say like I'm a very serious person, but when you come to me with an issue, with a problem, like we're gonna get to the bottom of it, and we're gonna make sure like we can, for one, either mitigate the symptoms of it or change it completely. You know, we're really about making that change. So that's a bit of what I do. So that's the clarity, the systems, and as well as like a form of like expression. I think that's something that we missed a lot, and typically in like the physical health realm or just in any type of personal development, like we need some outlet of expression. Like me personally, I use poetry and as a way my own form of self-expression for myself, and sometimes I do share it with people. But having some form of outlet that's outside of just working out or outside of doing a bunch of stress reducing activities or whatever, but that expression, at least in my eyes and my perspective, is when we allow our spirit to really come out of us and really let it shine, and kind of fortifies all the other different connections we made within ourselves in terms of physicality, in terms of mentality.
So would you say that when you first encounter somebody who is there, I mean, there's different levels, right? And I think we both know that until a person gets to the point where they actually want to have help, before that point comes, they engage in a lot of conversation with people.
Mm.
Usually there'll be a point where the curiosity about why they're not happy is enough that they start talking to people, but they haven't really made a decision that they're going to do something about it. So would you say this is a question of general unsatisfaction, or do you think that people tend to point the finger at a certain aspect of themselves and tend to focus on that? Like, I guess I'm referring to the issue of weight loss, because that seems to come up most with the group of people that I guess you would argue are our clients, because we're mainly working with people that are metabolically unhealthy, right? And
Yeah.
usually there's a big faction of those people that are overweight.
So, in terms of that, something that all of us are in, just from like a human behavior perspective, and something that I've learned throughout social work as well, is the trans theoretical behavioral change model. So pretty much, we're all caught in a cycle of something, whether it's our daily habits, our routines, our way of thinking, and all that. But when we get into the different cycle of change, this is pretty much where a lot of people can see themselves in. So they enter this new cycle, which the first step is pre-contemplation. So they're just thinking about making the change. I'm pretty sure you've heard of this throughout
Yeah.
your own coaching journey.
Yeah, go
Um,
ahead.
so, you're thinking about the change. You might be talking to people, oh, like your parents or your significant other, your dog, whatever it is. Like you're really thinking about the change. Like, yeah, I need a change, but you're not really putting action behind it. And a statistic, don't quote me on this, but from what I remember from one of my courses in college about behavioral change. So typically, people that know about the problem, only 12% actually make the change solely based off of just knowing they have a problem. So there's a big, difference in
Yeah.
terms of the success rate of people that make change just from knowing the problem. However, if you get to the next step, which is contemplation, so this part and anyone's change journey, they're seeking out actual support. They're talking to maybe a coach or talking to some form of counselor or talking to some professional of some sort, really about their issue. So they're getting more clarity on it, right? Whether it's a consultation, whether it's trying out a free class at a CrossFit gym, whatever it is, they're doing actionable things. Maybe not consistently, but they're getting a little bit out of their comfort zone. And the next step after that is more of determination, at least from this model, what it explains. So the determination part is really like they're ready to really make the change. They're ready to commit. They're ready. Like, I found a coach, I have a counselor, I have someone, some level of professional help that can help me really initiate this change. And once they're in this stage, this is where typically where we want all of our coaching clients, or want all of the people that really want to make the change to be at, because they're past the pre-contemplation, they're past thinking it, they're past just shopping around in the contemplation phase, and they're ready to determine who I want to work with. And after that is the action stage, where they're doing the work. They're put through a program, they're put through the ropes pretty much. And then there's a part in everyone's journey where we relapse, where, like I said earlier, like we question why we even made the change in the beginning to begin with. And we question all these different things. We may feel kind of like back to who we were before we even started the change. And at least from my perspective, it's like the old version of ourselves trying to like get one last punch before they go away, because they're still scared of change, scared to move on from this level of reality that we were so accustomed to. And after they get past that, they get into maintenance. And that's typically where I like to be more at, because I like to maintain things, whether it's relationships, like to nurture things. That's just like my overall is personality. I like to nurture the transformation to keep going, because throughout the process, like someone can, lose 100 pounds or get a brand new like squat or whatever, or, have some epiphanies and all that. But that's cool and all, but what happens after you leave the experience? Are you going to go back to the same, way of life before you even started? Because that's typically a lot what happens. And you can even tie that into, I believe, gastric bypass patients. So they lose all this weight, they, do whatever they do within the actual digestive system to, make the stomach a bit smaller and all that. But their habits haven't changed, and they go back to overeating, they gain all the weight, they do all the same things that they were doing before, even though they lost all the weight. At least in my perspective, when they get to that maintenance stage, this is where we're fortifying all these habits that we built throughout the entire process of the behavioral change model. So when you're in maintenance, that's the point where it's kind of like a long distance run or a marathon or whatever you want to call it. And you're just putting in the reps daily at that point, and you're finding a manageable pace. You might get tired along the way, but you're using your energy in a more consistent and a conscientious way.
Yeah, you're talking about sustainability now.
Yeah.
What you just described, I have to tell you, it's not very different than addiction and recovery, right? Because you have basically two aspects of that. You have the intake, and then you have the process. And if this is the way I think about it, because we're dealing with a group of people that on one level or another have addiction to sugar and carbohydrates, which the way that we, approach trying to help them come away from that is through developing new behaviors and new habits. And that's exactly what you're talking about. And then eventually you end up in the maintenance phase. And that's where the process and really having new healthy habits is going to make the difference as to whether or not the long-term aspect of that change is going to be sustainable.
Yeah.
So I see a lot of like correlation here. I don't know that I mean, this business of being a change agent, if I can use that term, maybe that's not the way it's meant to be used, but with the two of us, I think that really is the challenge when it boils down to it, helping these people develop new habits. But I would be curious if because we're coming at this from two angles, and I'm wondering when you start working with individuals, whether you find hidden unhealthy habits that are there besides, I don't know, um, alcohol, drugs,
Mhm.
perhaps. There could be a lot of different aspects that could derail the sustainability issue. Do you find that in the crew that you work with generally or not?
Yes, everyone has their vices, at least from my professional and personal perspective. Um, but how or what those vices are always unique to the individual. It doesn't have
Yeah,
to be anything external. Someone
yeah,
can be addicted to just complaining. You know what I'm saying?
right.
Because it feels good, like just to complain and, for lack of a better word, bitch about things. You know what I'm saying? So there's always something, from what I've gathered throughout my experience. But I like those moments, because what happens is, because I have a client right now who is actually in my leadership program, and life is throwing a lot at him, like a lot, like family issues, probably professional issues, and all that. And my job is to make sure he's showing up as a leader, both professionally and personally. And he isn't, unfortunately, executing his role within his leadership. So at that moment, I like to be in there because we're at that relapse part of the behavioral change model, right? We're at that moment, and people need to experience that. What is it that they're really needing? Because from what I've learned from my own coaching that I got from a mentor that I had about a year ago, that all addiction is this desire to heal. Every addict, every person that's addicted to something wants to change whatever they're feeling inside because it feels uncomfortable. And sometimes people resort to, harsh drugs or excessive eating or abusing sugar, because I believe the statistic is that sugar is the most abused substance, right, in the world of some sort. I
I
at
would agree
least,
with that.
yeah, because sugar is so
Yeah, and there's
addicting.
a really strong overlap between sugar and alcohol, by the way.
Mhm,
The two, usually, if somebody's addicted to sugar, they're also drinking, or vice versa.
exactly. You can even get into the chemistry of alcohol, how it has carbohydrates, hydrogen, and oxygen, which is pretty much the molecules what make sugar. So you can get into glucose and all that. So there's a reason why we're all like fixated on feeling good. I think that's just our nature. We want to feel something that's not, bad, for lack of a better word. But I think people go about it in a way that isn't really self-serving. It's more detrimental in the long run, because we haven't been taught as a society how to really take care of our health. We're not taught like proper nutrition. We're not taught proper way to maintain our physical, mental, or spiritual health. So when people like us, like we come into the mix, we can teach people a different way to really combat these addictive behaviors, right? But in reality, it's all someone that's really wants to heal, at least from my perspective.